the first time you've been to the mainland?
No. I've been here a few times, but first time to stay here was when I moved to the seminary. Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me just direct your attention to the front of the seminary, and pay attention to a few things. One is the word rebuilt, and then the number is 1908. This building suffered a major structural devastation in 1906. The big earthquake of 1906.
Yep.
It was rebuilt in 1908 and used school year 1909 and 1910. And the very next thing that you're drawn to, it depends. People have different sensibilities. Some immediately see the ambo, which is that wooden structure with the two candles. The left and the right look like scrolls from Jewish times. Some people notice the word. Some notice the altar. Some people notice the image of that individual on the very top, the very center. That is John the Baptist. If you were paying attention to the scripture readings during Advent, let he decrease, let I increase, he increases, I decrease. A reminder to us that he was that prophet who was calling us. You have the Blessed Sacrament right below. The medallions on the top of Daniel. The next one over is the prophet Isaiah. And then, you remember who's in the center?
John the Baptist.
You have Jeremiah over here. You have Ezekiel over here. And King David is the easiest one to point out because he's actually holding a crown. Everybody else is kind of up to your interpretation, although some people said it was easy to point out Moses because he had a long beard. Since we're up here, I'll have you all turn around and face the back. That is the image of Christ, the light of the world. You notice at his feet, there are children at his feet. One of the things that Jesus was known for saying was, we should be like little children in our understanding. That's kind of the connection. If you look at the top, many view those as the 12 apostles. Although we can't figure out, or at least it's not in any writing that I found, if you look to the very far left and the far right, right above the pipes, you'll see a dark image with a little halo, but you can see the face. But on the right-hand side, you have a dark image, you can't see the face. We don't really know what that is. Some people have said that one image is the image of Judas, a reminder that he was one of the 12. Another will say that one of those images, especially the one on the right-hand side, that does not have a face, that's an opportunity for us to place ourselves in that particular image. That we also are charged with going out into the world and preaching the gospel to the nations. So, just a few things to... So, the most important thing to me about ordination is simply responding to God's call. And two, which I think is very important, is being able to celebrate Mass and to hear confession. I think those two things are extremely important. Mass and confession. Without confession, many people won't be able to receive the Eucharist. And without the Mass, how else are you supposed to get the Eucharist? So, Mass and confession. Those are the two things that I find the most important. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Yes.
You wear a skull as a mark of authority. What do you think is the best way to serve them?
Best way to serve with authority? Modeling after Jesus. It's very, very simple. He gives so many different examples. Do you remember in Scripture that one little one little moment, actually it wasn't a little moment, when the woman who was caught in adultery was thrown before him, and the people around him said, it is our law that because she sinned in this way, that we have to kill her, and we're going to kill her by stoning her to death. Do you remember what his response was? Let he who has no sin cast the first stone. Authority without love and mercy is enough. You have to have love and mercy in all that you do. That was one of his commandments. That's the greatest commandment, to love. Yeah, I saw another hand. Was somebody raising their hand back there? If not, okay, yes.
Why did you feel called by God to be a teacher?
Why did I feel called? Everybody's call is different. Some people get it when they're really young. And I have a classmate who was in the seminary from, I think he was 11 years old or 12 years old. And he's also a deacon. Mine was a little later. Repeat the question again.
Why did you feel called by God to be a deacon?
The calling for me was like, how many of you have dogs? Or how many of you know somebody who has a dog? And you've seen the dog and you've pet the dog before? Okay. My vocation call was like a little puppy. You ever go into someone's house and the puppy is a friendly puppy and wants your attention and will follow you everywhere? Well, if the puppy was biting you in the leg, you just ignore that other puppy. But think of the puppy that will follow you everywhere. That was the vocation call for me. I kept ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it. I was in high school. I attended the all-boys school, which was also a minor seminary. Although I never entered the seminary because I was ignoring the little puppy. God is not a puppy, but that's the easier analogy. I went to college. I got my degree. I was actually a teacher for a number of years. And then, but that puppy, that call, was still following me. It wasn't biting at me. It wasn't making noise. It was just following me wherever I went. So no matter what I was doing, who I was with, the good and the bad, and the ugly sometimes, that vocation call was always there. God was always constantly reminding me, or trying to tell me, this is what I want you to do. Some of you might feel that. Some of you might, right away, will know it. And go in the seminary like one of my classmates who entered at 11 or 10 years old. Some of you are going to ignore it like I did. But eventually you respond. Some of you will get the very deep calling to be a husband one day and raise family well. Remember that authority issue? Just because the priest wears a stole doesn't mean that if you ever become a parent, that your own particular stole gets taken away. You also have to treat your family and friends, especially your children and your spouse, with love and mercy. So, my calling never left me. Always followed me. It still does, although it's not a puppy anymore, it's a full-grown dog. Any other question? You in the back of the gray sweater. I saw your hand go up.
What way do you exercise your role as a priest, bishop, deacon, prophet, and king in your
Well, at least in my capacity as a deacon, my primary role, well, I have quite a variety. I not only I'm here to proclaim the gospel, but also give homilies at Mass, but part of my role is also to admit to baptize children, to be the officiate at weddings. I'm also to bury the dead, also visiting the sick and helping the poor. That's my particular role, my particular call at this point in time. When I get ordained a priest, if the bishop so grants me to be a pastor, then I have an extra responsibility. I have pastoral care for all the souls that are in that particular parish. What I do, you asked the question of the stole and how I exercise authority. If I was to become a priest, my responsibility is even greater. How I treat the people in the parish, how I exercise love and mercy, that will all be on my shoulders when I die and I have to answer to God. It's a lot harder when you're a priest because you have more to answer to when you're dead. But that's the one thing that makes me happy because I know I'm doing it based on the Good Shepherd If I follow him, then the stole part that you're talking about, the mercy and love part, if I just follow him, I will be fine. If I start following myself, that's where, when I die, I have a lot to answer to if I don't properly minister to the souls in the parish. So, to go back to your question, there you go. Those are my duties and future duties. Anybody else? Yes.
How does a major presentation of the ministerial life often hinder your ministry?
How does what?
How does the media presentation of the ministerial life often hinder your ministry?
Media presentation. Okay. What grade are you? 8. You guys? 8, 7, 6? High school too? Okay. When I was moving, I'll answer your question with when I was growing up. I was constantly moving from school to school when I was growing up, only because my parents had to change jobs frequently. And going from school to school, one big problem. Good luck trying to make friends. Good luck. It was hard for me. I moved into a very poor neighborhood, and they were all one ethnicity, and I was another ethnicity. They don't want to have anything to do with me. I moved into another neighborhood where it was all mixed. There was an equal number of this group, this ethnicity, or that culture, this culture, equal number. But they already made friends with each other because I came as a 7th grader. They all made friends as a 6th grader. So here I am, 7th grade, coming into this middle school. Everyone's like, who's this guy? Treat you like that. But do they know me? No. They don't know anything about me, but they're still going to treat me that way. Did they know me? No. But what are they going to do? Look at this guy. Look at what he's wearing. He smells funny. What kind of soap is he wearing? Who styles their hair like that? Man, those are last year's shoes. But do they know me? No, they don't know me. Did they even bother asking about me? No, they didn't. That's the media with priests. That's the media, not all media. There's a lot of media that are good too, so I'm not going to discount all media. But that's often what happens with the media. They don't bother asking. They just, assume it. Oh, the guy next to you says, that guy's shoes are last year's, shoes. Or that guy's hair is, oh my goodness, cut his hair. I'll put a bowl on top of his head, whatever. That's the problem. They don't ask. They just assume and they tease and they point fingers. But do they really know? No, they don't. No, they don't. Sometimes you'll see on TV, they have this pastor from this particular church, and he is our religion expert. Okay, he's going to be a pastor of that particular church, but he's not a pastor of the Catholic Church. So, why are you going to ask the guy who takes care of another church to talk about the Catholic Church? I mean, do you go to the gardener when you have a toothache? You just tell him to take out the pliers and pull it out for you? No, where do you go? You go to the dentist. So, much in the same way that you go to that particular person for that particular role, sometimes if you want to learn something about the church, the media is not always the best thing for you. Come to the church. Come to the place where you expect to get that knowledge. Don't go to the gardener to pull out your teeth. Go to the dentist to pull out your teeth. Learn spirituality from your parents who learned it from the Church of Catholic. So that's it. I mean, it's general common sense, but that's what happens with the media oftentimes. Is they don't ask. They just kind of assume and point fingers. It's sad, but you're all in middle school and high school. There's no real difference in how we feel and how the way that you're treated. And I'm sure your parents might say the same thing when they get a new job. Like, who's this guy? Oh, just because he has a higher degree than I do or has been in the company longer than he thinks he can come in here and take over this office? Believe me, if your parents actually talked about what they do in their work, the kind of stresses that they go through, it's not very different from what you feel in school. Unless they're popular, which is always good. Any other questions? Yes?
How do the church as a deacon?
How do I help the church as a deacon? Here in California or back home? Both? Here in California, I don't have a parish assignment. I work with married couples who are struggling in their marriages. Maybe the husband or the wife is just, I don't want to have anything more to do with it. Sometimes both don't want to be in the marriage anymore. and it's their mom, their dad, or their close friend that says, please, just give us, give your marriage one more try. I work with that. I'm not an expert at it, but it's tough. Much in the same way, I'm sure you guys have experienced dealing with friends who are fighting with each other. And maybe you're the one that steps in to try and say, hey, my God, good. Or he made a mistake. I saw it. Give him or her the benefit of the doubt. That's where I work. And then my dad says, who knows? I hope to bring it there. We'll see. Any other questions? Quiet guy in the back. No? You sure?
Are we all good? Yeah. So let's stand up. Give Deacon Richard